to go away from each other. They start to get closer. Those axes aren't very distinctive anymore. So that's when you notice you'll see a ball that has wider flare rings, and then they narrow up, and they might flare up, they might increase again. But what happens is, at certain points traveling down the lane, this ball may lose the ability to want to change directions. And what's the one thing that has to make it change directions? Friction. And if there's not enough friction, it will not change directions. So what I was trying to do here in the concept is, even as you tilt it out across that axis, it maintains its differential a lot longer than any other part right now in the industry. And the yearly feedback I get from a lot of people around the country is, this ball just continues to hook. I mean, it gets in the oil, it hooks, it hits the dry, it hooks. And even when they're broke down, even when they're starting to go away, where you'd think it would lose some energy, it still continues to hook. Because it does maintain its differential longer. It's not going to maintain it all the way through the lane. No ball will. Because at this point right here, this shape almost gets to the point where we lose differential, but we keep it longer than any other part in the history of bowling. And that's the next direction that we're going to have to go in the sport of bowling, is designing these balls that as they're traveling down the lane, they're maintaining, they never lose it. Having facets to the core, or shapes or protrusions in certain spots to maintain it. This is the first step in that direction. That's why this ball is so unique, and that's why I'm so excited about it, because it's a different direction. Okay? So that's the theory behind the core. The other added bonus, there's less dynamic integrity taken away from the ball in drilling. You notice that the indentions fall in strategic spots, because when we do put holes in the ball, a lot of times we can change the dynamics. Now what happens is, if you drill a ball for one player and he has great success with it, but the other player comes in, says, hey, drill one just like you drill my buddy, and they're pretty close to each other, but one guy has a 13/16 thumb and the other guy has an 1.1/16 thumb. Or he likes to drill, you drill him a little deeper, the tops, you drill into him, you drill more of the core mass out. So the ball's actually different. You actually change that split between the Y and the Z, and you change the shape more. What I was trying to do here also was to give you a shape that doesn't change as much. Notice the pin above the fingers, pin below the fingers. We're still just barely taking out a little bit of that core. Not nearly as much as we'll do with a lot of other products on the market. So that's another thing, is it maintains its dynamic integrity after drilling. Where some of these people are teaching you methods of drilling balls and actually drilling and trying to change the shape. But that is not consistent from ball to ball to ball. I'd rather you not change the shape too much. I'd rather you keep the dynamic integrity of the part. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. So here's the other scenario. So we built this weight block and we say, oh my gosh, I really like this. And we tested it with a couple different covers, and we tested. But we came up with a new design and a cover. Some changes to it. After talking to our chemist who builds our products for us, we kept saying we need a cover stock that's going to give us a couple things that we're missing. We need a cover stock that gives us increased durability, increased longevity, and also another thing is, can we keep the friction value up, or can we make it more? Well, he came back to us and he said, well, we're going to try a couple of different things here. He changed, if you think about the way a cover stock's put together, and you see think of it like a sponge, okay? Think of it, and the fact is, the more pores, the more porosity, the more it hooks. Now, the USBC just came through with their ball motion study, just published the information, and what they said was, there's two factors most important to creating hook in a bowling ball, and that is coefficient of friction and oil absorption. Now, oil absorption, I think, is a byproduct, and I'll be the first to say I think it's a byproduct of porosity, but there's no way for them to measure porosity other than to measure how fast the oil goes into a bowling ball. I think there's more to it than just the coefficient of friction and the oil absorption rate. Oil absorption is the only way they can actually define it right now. I think if they could define and have a better picture of what the cover stock looked like in relation to peaks and valleys and surface area touching the lane, that would be a better, but they don't have a method of doing that right now. So their theory right now is that oil absorption, the quicker the oil absorption rate, the more a ball hooks. But we also know too is the faster the oil absorbs into a bowling ball, it's like a sponge. You set a sponge on the counter in the water, eventually it's going to take all the water into the sponge, isn't it? So it's the same thing that happens to a bowling ball. Eventually, the oil is going to fill the pores of this bowling ball, and if you don't maintain it, it's going to lose its ability to hook, or its ability to create as much friction as it did when you first had it. And I'll tell you something else too, is a lot of times the oil doesn't go into the polyester. The core is a polyester core. It is actually an increased density core, and it has less porosity. So a lot of times, the oil filters into the cover stock, does not filter into the core. So it's going to reach its point where it doesn't have any more distance to go. So what I asked my chemist was, I said, so oil absorption, is it that we need to be more porous and we need to have more oil absorption to hook? And he says, no, it's not necessarily that. There's a couple of different things we can look at. If we change the way the matrix is built, we change the elasticity of the cover stock a little bit, we can tighten the matrix. You think of it like a net, and as we stretch, or think of it like a spider web. As you stretch the spider web, there's less holes in it, and the holes become tighter, but you still have pliability and flexibility to the cover. We change the ratio, we shoot it at a different ratio, and we change a couple of additives to the cover to create actually a little less oil absorption rate, but we create still more elasticity to the cover. We still maintain hook. What we've seen is oil absorption rate on this cover is slower, the durability is higher, which is what we're looking for, and the longevity is more. So we get something that will absorb oil slower, which is going against what the USB-C says. But I just read yesterday or 2 days ago that there's another manufacturer out there in the market today that also is claiming the same thing. They've slowed oil absorption rate, but increased friction. So it is possible. What I'm saying is the USB-C study is a very good study, but their category of saying oil absorption is the key to hook is also, it's just a byproduct of porosity.
This was really the result of their first phase of testing. You know, they have just phase 1 is one that they've completed so far, and they still have phase 2 that's going into more examining surface roughness, they're calling, and there's 2 different. We'll talk about it too in the next portion, but different components of the cover stock beyond just oil absorption. Because as they admitted, and what they're saying is that they have just a way right now, which is place a specific size drop of oil in the cover stock, see how long it takes for it to disappear.
Right.
And like I said, the different kind of conflicting results right now, and the different theories and stuff that you'll hear is oil absorption good or is it bad? As you know, with a polyester ball or your spare ball, and you take it out of your bag the next week, a lot of times there's still oil on it, so there's very slow oil absorption rate as compared with a lot of times your strike ball comes back through the ball return, the oil's already in. Mm-hmm. You know, it depends on where you're at and the patterns you're bowling on and the type of surface you have on your ball, but